A very warm welcome to the 22nd episode of the WWEA podcast, The World of Wind Power. My name is Stefan Gsänger, and it's my pleasure to welcome today a guest from a country which, well, not everybody will automatically think of this being an important wind energy country. Although I visited the country already, I can tell you there is a lot of wind, there is a lot of space. It's my pleasure to welcome Arman Kashinbekov, who is the CEO of the Association of Renewable Energy of Kazakhstan. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for inviting me to this podcast, and thanks to organization WWEA for our collaboration.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure, and I'm sure that it will be very interesting because I was just told that there is some new developments even that we can inform our audience about. But before we start, maybe you would like to introduce yourself. I've already mentioned your role in the association, but maybe you can introduce how have you come to work with wind energy in a country that is, as I said, not so well known yet for wind energy and renewable energy.
Absolutely. My name is Arman Kashinbekov. I'm coming from Kazakhstan, and I'm for the past this year 11th year chairing the main association for renewable energy in Kazakhstan. We unite solar, wind, hydro, biomass, and other types of renewable alternative sources producers, investors in this country. It's a big country, ninth largest country in the world. It's not our achievement of the current generation. Thanks to our predecessors for securing this huge land for us. And the goal is, of course, to use the resources with big wisdom so that the further generations are not affected. That's the principle of sustainable development of any country, and Kazakhstan is no exception. I have worked in oil and gas industry, in metallurgical industry, in the investment industry, and for the final part in renewable energy, heading AREK, as well as realizing the project in renewable energy as a businessman as well. The good for us in now in Kazakhstan, we have open state. It's easy to approach Minister of Energy, Vice Minister, key decision makers, Prime Minister, and even President, who are very green by their nature. That helps a lot in countries like Kazakhstan to further enhance the development of renewable energy from current achievements until planned ones. And we have big numbers. In Kazakhstan, currently, as of 2025, we have produced about 7% of clean energy in total generation. And the next milestone is 2030, 15%, and then 2050, 50%. Final destination for us, in good sense, is 2060 carbon neutrality of the country as per our international obligations under Paris Concord, Paris Agreement that Kazakhstan have ratified and signed in 2016. So we see the big inflow of investments into renewable energy, and wind is clear leader in our country. Why? Because we have enormous unexplored renewable energy potential for wind measured in terawatt hours, and only, as I said, less than 7% of that being used combined with other renewable energy sources. So definitely the potential is quite huge, taking into account growth of the nation. We are exceeded 20 million people uh, number, and it's going up, as well as, of course, higher energy consumption coming from digitalization, introduction of artificial intelligence to main industries, core industries in Kazakhstan. This year in Kazakhstan officially is the year of digitalization, and we have came to President, Prime Minister, our colleagues with nation initiative to officially claim next 2027 year as the year for renewable energy in Kazakhstan. And we have several rationales for that. The first one, next year will be 10th anniversary of Astana Expo 2017, when for the first time clearly and openly Kazakhstan declared its intention to go green to the whole world community. There were many international participants, investors, scientists, enthusiasts, top managers who have visited. conference and exhibition back then in the Astana, in the capital of our country. So we have to have the history of that and the follow-up. The second, why this 2027 from our point of view is a good choice for green energy year is because it will be marking 135th anniversary of the first ever energy station in Kazakhstan, built at 1890 in Kazakhstan, the first hydropower station, which is also clean energy.
Mhm.
So, and also in meaning our collaboration with the European Union, because starting 2027, EU will introduce CBAM, cross-border carbon tax for all goods and work services imported in the territory of the EU, and we are big exporters of some materials to that. So we hope that government will support that with this strategic initiative, and definitely it's our pleasure to cooperate with WWEA, World Leading Wind Energy Organization Association. I have had pleasure to visit December event in China, in Shantou City, first time, and I was very impressed by the size, by the participation rank of the people, and definitely the organization should collaborate on renewable energy, wind energy in Kazakhstan and Central Asia.
Well, excellent. That was already quite a lot of information about where Kazakhstan stands at the moment. Kazakhstan, you've mentioned, has 20 million inhabitants, so it's a quite sizable country. It's not a small country, but when you look at the land mass, then that's even huge. Huh? I've checked, of course, before the podcast, 2.7 million square kilometer, which is the ninth rank worldwide. So one of the largest countries in terms of land mass. And when we know that renewable energy primarily are based on land, whether you use wind or solar, you need land area available to harvest them. Or bioenergy is the same. Whatever you mentioned them all. Now, when we just look still a little bit at where we are, of course, Kazakhstan is known. I think primarily, as I said, for providing mineral resources. With this huge land, you have a lot of fossil, but I assume also other resources which you are exporting. Now, at the moment, you said 7% comes from renewable energy of the electricity produced. What is the other sources? Are you using gas, coal, or what are the main sources at the moment?
Absolutely. The clear mathematics shows that if 7% comes from renewable energy as of 2025, 93% comes from other sources, and 75% of that is coal. We have
Mhm.
small part, like 10% for gas, and that's basically it, because in Kazakhstan we have hydro, of course, but that's also part of renewable energy, which is
Mhm.
expanded. So 75 to 80% coming from coal. It's not clean yet. That the energy system of total capacity 21 gigawatt installed facilities we inherited from being part of the Soviet Union as one of 15 republics. So they were built by our predecessors, by our grandmothers and grandfathers and parents, and they were good, high quality trained engineers. That's why these power stations still work and
Mhm.
produce electricity and heat. The important point that thermal power stations, coal-fired, have a primary function in Kazakhstan of heating. We have centralized system, and electricity comes as a secondary source. And from that perspective, of course, it's important to develop renewable energy sources also applicable for heating of the nation, because we are quite cold country. Right
Mhm.
now it's
Mhm.
minus 15 or 20 in the
Oh.
north of Kazakhstan. It can be even colder than that, but in the south it's almost like plus temperatures, positive temperatures. So it's a big country, and that's the energy system we inherited. We declared that we'll be going through energy transition to low carbon sources of energy, meaning all mentioned already renewable energy sources plus geothermal energy, which we have big potential, plus maybe also peaceful nuclear power stations with focus on SMRs, small medium reactors, now being developed by developing world and China. which can be a good solution as well to replace outdated and phasing out thermal power, coal power stations, because that's the reality we'll face not now, but maybe in 10-15 year period. Plus, take into account the surplus for growing demand for electricity with gadget, electric vehicles, and computing and smartphones and everything, and AI and data centers. Of course, the surplus have to be taken into account as well. So secure. We see in Kazakhstan, as in worldwide, the electricity finally becoming the main strategic source of any nation nowadays in 21st century. And you correctly said that Kazakhstan is known worldwide as being top 10 oil and gas producer. And also we are number one in the world uranium producer. And also we're a big producer and exporters of iron ore, chromium, and nowadays, which is important, rare earth minerals. So yes, we have huge resources, and the goal is to use all of them in a good combination to secure sustainable and stable energy and heating supply to growing nation. And I'm sure renewable energy will play even higher role with that, with all the investments coming from abroad and inside.
Now, when we look at that, I mean, I can certainly, from my personal perception, I've read some studies as well. But visiting Astana and then knowing that in this it's grassland, so there's when I was there was a lot of wind blowing. So I'm sure that you can cover your demand many, many times, probably thousands of times, just for these wind resources. Now, maybe can you tell us a little bit, was that already used in history in the past, or when did people start thinking of that? Of course, now there is modern wind power, and I understand also there is some investment, and maybe you can tell us also what is the installed capacity at this point of time. But I know that, for example, the Soviet Union, there were some places where wind power was used for generation of electricity. Was that also the case in Kazakhstan?
Absolutely, because I'm mentioning our enormous uh, renewable energy sources with the focus on wind energy. Yes, the information shows that we have terawatt measured potential, which is still unexplored inland and offshore. Good for us, we have big Caspian Sea, which we share with the neighbors. And the preliminary estimates show in high potential in the Caspian Sea. Kazakhstan is a very windy country. Why we don't develop yet offshore wind? Because we have a lot of landmass. So it's technically, from technical point of view, it's easier for investors, no matter where they come from, to invest and develop their inland wind generation projects. For the history, I think that we can go even wider. Our great predecessors lived in complete concord and harmony with the nature, with the environment. There was already a circular economy that now we're trying to build, because there was almost minimum, if no harm, to the environment when they lived in villages, or as we call them, auls, because it was used, reutilized all the waste back to uh, agriculture or back to cattle farming. I think we're just trying to remind ourselves that the history of ourselves for many centuries. And of course, for wind energy, we welcome investors who are coming from, their names are well known. They're coming from China, like energy China, like Power China, like Masdar from United Arab Emirates. We have Total Eren from France. We have other companies that are coming from all parts of the world because they see potential in Kazakhstan. The high capacity factor for wind energy in Kazakhstan achieved was recorded up to 44%
Wow.
in central north part of Kazakhstan. Very strong winds, but of course we're also developing solar. So all installed capacity for renewable energy is little below 3.5 gigawatt, which splits almost equally between wind and solar, plus approximately 350 for hydro, and very small 1, 2, 3 megawatts for biomass. So that's how it shows big potential on wind and solar. Kazakhstan is developing renewable energy with different frameworks, trying to find best solution. First option is attracting strategic investors mentioned already for intergovernmental agreements, 1 gigawatt plus projects together with BESS storage up to 30-40% of the envisaged capacity that comes from Masdar, from China Power, from Total Eren and other companies. Second option is annual auctions of the Ministry of Energy for wind and other types of renewable energy like solar and hydro, and that attracts also big attention from investors who can realize projects at a smaller scale, like 50 megawatt or 100 megawatt. Good example for us, government is now thinking about localization
Mhm.
possibilities, so that they have undertaken the first step. The sovereign wealth fund Sabro signed and already successful implementing agreement with big Chinese wind generator producer Sany Group on assembly part in Jambol, South Kazakhstan region, and that's already almost a well-functioning project to be fully commissioned this summer. We're thinking about the same for solar panels, so that the industry is sustainable, with some parts of the solar and wind power plants farms to be coming from Kazakhstan goods, works, and services. It's very important to support local businesses as well, so that we don't invest 100% in national economies of other countries.
Mm. Yeah, that's a very important part of the wind development strategy, of course. I mean, you also remember that we published our community engagement guidelines to really make sure that the people where investment takes place have benefits out of that. So, do I understand you right? You said there is like 1.5 gigawatt of installed capacity right now
Yeah,
in Kazakhstan. Yeah, and who are the so far? Who are the equipment suppliers? You mentioned Sani is going to build
it's
something
a
like
very
a
good
factory.
question. The first ever built wind power station in Kazakhstan in Eremintau, 2 hour drive from Astana capital to the north towards Pavlodar city, was built several years ago, maybe 10 years ago, and now operated by Samruk Energy State Company, which is the national energy champion. And it was 44 it is 44 megawatt capacity, installed capacity, with 22 2.2 megawatt capacity for lander with generators coming from GV in Ukraine.
Furländer.
The,
Oh, that's really historic. The company unfortunately
and
stopped
the
existing.
first,
Not
yeah,
far from where I am now, by the way. It's just 50 kilometers where they had their head
the world
office.
is small and getting smaller.
Yes.
That's only one example. And second, for example, if we expand for 1 minute to solar, the first ever solar power station, Burnoy 1 and 2, in two stages, 50 by 50, altogether 100 megawatt in South Kazakhstan, was first stage equipped with solar panels coming from Solar World, Germany.
That's in Bonn from where I'm at the moment where I'm based. So actually, yes, there is the world is really small. And
But
now
we
with
have to
the
be, and now it's in everywhere in the world.
mm,
It's mainly coming from China, from biggest wind and solar producers of this country, from Goldwind. And we have, by the way, some Vestas earlier realized projects. And of course, it's coming from other producers like Envision is very active from China here. Also, and all for solar, it's all big four coming from China.
well, that is almost kind of monopoly. Not Chinese manufacturers in solar are almost the only ones now supplying. There is, I think, a bit more diversity in that sense in the case of wind energy. Now, as you've mentioned, there is around 1,500 megawatt of installed capacity, and you are interested in having foreign investors. What is the market volume expected in the next years? And what kind of tool are you using to attract those investors? You have power purchase agreements, and what's the
Yeah,
range of it?
absolutely. Let's start from the main point. We have PPA, power purchase agreement, issued by the government as a government guarantee, 20-year period for big projects going under mentioned intergovernmental agreement, strategic investors for projects 1 gigawatt over together with BES. It's in hard currency, indexed every year by inflation and devaluation. And secondly is for auctions. It's also 20-year with the open auction system. So it's approximately for wind energy, it's approximately 4.5 euro or dollar cents per kilowatt hour that they will produce. So it's quite favorable terms because we have additional guarantees and steam like preferences, like zero custom duty for all imported equipment, which helps a lot. Now we're discussing also tax breaks and other benefits to producers, like removing VAT for local producers of and developers in renewable energy. We see the international experience and try to implement the best practices here because, as we mentioned, Kazakhstan, known worldwide for traditional energy sources as top 10 or even top 1 in case of uranium, and Kazakhstan plans to stay so as a regional leader, at least in the middle and long-term perspective with clean energy. Our president recently visited Azerbaijan Baku International Conference top-level meeting and mentioned now planned Trans-Caspian Energy Corridor project of clean energy from alternative energy from Central Asia and Azerbaijan to EU, to European Union, and we definitely I would say value the importance consultancy of EU countries because renewable energy in Kazakhstan mainly back from 2013 on 2009 when the first ever law on support renewable energy source in Kazakhstan was adopted by the parliament was also consulted and guided by some European agencies and foundations and also studied, of course, German example as well as other. But the reality now is that we have a essential neighbor, second largest economy in the world, China. So we try to take advantage from our neighborship with this great country in terms of the value added in renewable energy for big, small scale and medium-sized projects which go under different frameworks which I mentioned. Big scale, IGA, small scale, medium size for the auctions or individual agreements. We also would like now to develop small wind generation and rooftop solar to support small, medium enterprises and businesses, households in Kazakhstan. And that's another part of the lesson that we're learning from EU, Germany, US, and other countries, because in all of these countries, as we see, at least 50% for wind and solar is also coming from decentralized power generation, which is also a new topic for us. It's an issue, but it brings stability to the national grid. It also supports the significant decrease in loss on electricity transportation because we have big country, and also it's I would say strengthening national energy independence, taking into account the situation around. So we're now talking to Ministry of Energy for small wind generators and rooftop solar nationwide program to start in Kazakhstan. It's already allowed and envisaged in existing mentioned law support renewable energy sources, but it's not developing yet fast. And that's where we're talking to strategic investors as well.
That's very interesting. I mean, I think this is a discussion that is really starting in many countries. We have the large wind farms now, and even you said that 50 megawatt is not a big project, but still it is sizable. You need big consumption for that. You cannot just have a village, you need more than that. But as you're mentioning also the smaller and decentralized approaches, because that's a discussion, and indeed China is such an now unprecedented example for renewable energy, for wind in particular. But also in China, people are starting to look into mini grid structure with smaller wind turbines. And I could imagine that there must be a market in Kazakhstan, with places which may not have such a strong connection to the grid. So that sounds indeed very promising for me. If you look at this, the overall situation, and now with the big potential that you see also providing maybe even other countries, there must also be some problems. What are the barriers that is keeping the growth at the moment back in Kazakhstan?
I think the problem in Kazakhstan, since the world is already so small, we don't have any individual problems. I would say they are generic for the whole global renewable energy community. From my point of view as an expert from Kazakhstan, the number one still current issue that we are facing. I won't say it's problem because it can be issue that will be resolved in a very short period of time, is the high capex cost for BESS, for batteries, because they will bring stability. And we understand not only to renewable energy that we represent, but anything else, to traditional sources as well. Big storage systems, affordable, economically viable in Kazakhstan can be a very good solution. So we're talking to Ministry of Energy, the main regulating state body, how we will promote best storage systems introduction in Kazakhstan. They are needed to stabilize the grid with the growing share of renewable energy, which is, as we know, unstable. So storage is the key solution. Secondly, what helps a lot, Kazakhstan, no exception. I would say it's not a barrier, but it's also a trend. It's a significant decline in capexes for the equipment for renewable energy. It's more applicable to solar, but it's also in some sense applicable to wind because the capexes going down significantly worldwide. Kazakhstan, no exception. If we take, for example, solar, the mentioned solar power station first ever built 10 years ago, Borne Solar, where solar panels was costing more than 200 million euros, supported 100 megawatt capacity, supported by European Bank for Reconstruction Development. And recently, the same size 100 megawatt solar power station was launched. There are many of those already, and the capex turnkey were 70. So the clear mathematics shows the capexes for solar power stations fell down 3 times in Kazakhstan. That brings to low tariff and affordability by the customers. We always have to think about the new end users, the population of Kazakhstan, so that the higher energy costs can be affordable by them. It's very important from strategic point of view. And for wind energy, we see the same trend. I would say it's not as big as for solar, but we're sure it will be also developing that fast. Another issue that we face in Kazakhstan, which is already developed in developed world, and that's another lesson for us to be learned, is green financing for small scale wind generators and rooftop solar. Commercial banks have to come and make their play and role. Unfortunately, that's not yet happening as of now in Kazakhstan. Only Development Bank of Kazakhstan is ready as a government institution to support the project. But for this to be large scale and effective, efficient, successful, we need support from commercial banks in terms of financing, in terms of from the government, in terms of tax credits, low interest loans, leasing operations. That's where we have to do our homework as well. And finally, of course, is finding, I hope, this year the golden middle in terms of the interest of big investors with 1 gigawatt together with the annual auctions by Ministry of Energy for lesser capacity, so that everyone's interests are taken into account, so we don't have a bias in any size, in any position.
Yeah, very interesting. So you see then, or I'm sure that when the market develops and this financing also is kind of the companies will find their ways. Now, when we just this is very exciting what you're telling me here, and I'm now just curious. Maybe you can give us, after now understanding much better the situation in Kazakhstan, what do you expect will be the installed capacity, let's say, in 2030 and in 2050 in Kazakhstan? Do you have an idea where the market will be by that time?
Yes. As of now, we have recorded 3.5 installed renewable energy altogether capacity, and we see that it will grow in higher to 7 and then to 10 and maybe more gigawatt of installed capacity, taking into account the whole energy system is 21. So it will be surplus in terms of energy growth, but it will be exceeding these numbers. It's officially recorded in government documents already, but that, as they say, 50% can come for renewable and alternative sources of energy, because it should be a mix of those capacities that we have from traditional. We are big also producer of gas, and gas is used everywhere in Europe, in America today. You share the news that gas is now a focus in America, so why don't we do the same, providing it's economically viable and not so expensive? Because we also have to mention that renewable energy is becoming the least expensive energy source worldwide, and Kazakhstan is no exception. We all have this information that any new nuclear power station, coal, clean coal, whatever it is, power station, gas, natural gas power station, unfortunately, is much more expensive than clean energy. And once again, when batteries will become affordable and cheaper, that's clear solution.
Yes. And I can just tell you that at the moment I have a heat pump now for more than 2 years, and I'm glad I don't need to buy gas at the moment when you listen to the news. But anyway, I think there is a bright future for Kazakhstan. There is no doubt, and for wind energy, for renewables in Kazakhstan. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. I'm sure that our audience will find it very interesting. I wish you all the best, a lot of success for the work that you're personally doing and also for the country on the way to more renewable energy, in particular wind power.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and World Wind Energy Organization. I would like to add that solar and wind is even indicated in our national flag. We have sun in the middle, and we have eagle flying below the sun, supported by strong winds in Kazakhstan.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I never seen the flag from that angle that the wind is there also. Yeah, that's I think a very nice conclusion. Again, thank you so much, and thank you also to our audience for listening.
Thank you very much, and let's cooperate and make our planet more greener.
Yes, we will do that together in our global community. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.